5.5, performing function operations. In this section, we're going to add, subtract, multiply, divide polynomials. We're going to find out what your function equals when you substitute an x and state the domain. So what you get, just adding polynomials is just adding the two. That's easy. Subtracting is easy as long as you distribute. Multiplying, and notice the notation here. It's a lot easier to look at the right side of the notation rather than the left side. And then dividing. Now, this is usually the small print really doesn't matter. It matters, but we focus more on what's above it. This small print is important. It talks about the domain. And so basically, the domain of the new function, after you add, subtract, multiply, divide, is the domain that's in both of the functions. So it's the overlap of them, or the intersection of them. With one other consideration, and that is with the quotient, you have to be careful where the denominator does not equal 0. So you have to eliminate that. So let's say, for example, that you have this problem and it says to evaluate that. If it makes sense, I like to write it like that. Maybe you don't need to. But I'm basically taking my f of x and subtracting off my g of x. So thinking about subtracting this, I'm going to just combine the like terms. 2x cubed, let's see, negative 2x squared plus 3x squared is plus x squared. Again, distributing that negative through. This is going to be minus 4x because there is no x term. And then 5 plus 2 is plus 7. That's the first question. State the domain. Domain is the intersection of the two. This has a domain of all real numbers. All the x's are covered. All the x's are covered. The domain is going to be in interval notation, negative infinity, positive infinity, not including them because infinity is a concept. And then the last part is evaluate where it's equal to a negative 2. Where x equals negative 2, what I'm going to do is substitute negative 2, in for my x, and then I'm going to go ahead and evaluate. So that means, let's see, negative 8, negative 16, plus 4, plus 8, plus 7, 15, 19 minus 16 is 3. Now, you can do the same type of idea here. What does this equal? That equals, let's see, 6x divided by x to the 3/4, which means this is to the first or the 4/4. And this is bigger, so I'm going to keep it here, and it's going to be 6x. Subtracting them gives you 1/4. So that's what your first answer is. This is f divided by f of x divided by g of x, right? That's what you're doing here. F of x divided by g of x is equal to 6x to the 1/4. Now, when I evaluate these, the domain of this one is all real numbers. The domain of this one is actually, the graph looks like this, so the domain is going to be including 0 to infinity, which means that the domain of this one is going to be the overlap, which is going to be including 0 to positive infinity. Then evaluate the quotient. So I'm basically looking at substituting 16 in. So it's 16 to the power of 1/4, which is 2, and 6 times 2 is 12.